Hi, I'm Marcus Fairs, founder and editor-in-chief of Dezeen, and I'm broadcasting live from our studio in London. Today, we've teamed up with Italian porcelain brand Ginori 1735 for a talk about their new collection of home fragrances, designed together with Luca Nichetto, who is joining me from Stockholm. Hi, Luca.
Hi, Marcus. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. A bit freezing today, but was good.
Yeah. It's finally winter.
Yes.
In the Northern Hemisphere, at least.
Yeah, exactly.
So where are you? That doesn't look like your studio to me.
No, I was running in my wife's parents' house because I have a trouble with the internet connection in my studio, in my new studio. So it was a bit of surprise that the internet doesn't work in Sweden, but in the end, I fixed it this way.
It's interesting doing these talks because I often get to see people's houses, people's grandparents' houses, the office next door, wherever has some good internet. Anyway, Luca, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
So I'm an Italian designer. Sometimes I like to define myself a Venetian designer because I'm from Venice. And I opened my studio in the beginning of 2000, let's say, in Venice. And since I worked there since 2010, then later when my wife, that she's a custom maker, received an offer to come back to Stockholm and work for the opera, I follow her and I start to do a back and forth. And I opened my second studio here. And since then, let's say the studio, the two offices, the one in Venice and the one in Stockholm, work together and was exploding a little bit our international network. And in the recent years, let's say from the classical field of the Italian design, means furniture and lighting, we also move and explore many other typology and products. And so I can say that we are a multidisciplinary design studio right now, working worldwide, more or less.
And the talk is about your relationship with Ginori. Yeah. Do you work with lots of Italian brands as an Italian designer? Do you find that you collaborate more with Italian brands, or are you working with studios all around the world, with brands all around the world?
Of course, in the beginning, I was working mostly with Italian brands. I'm still working with a few Italian brands, but if I'm looking the actual portfolio, I can see that we have 20-30% of Italian brand and the rest is worldwide. And but still very close, the relationship that I have with Italians.
And what do the Italian brands and the Italian designers think about an Italian designer who left Italy? Because usually they stay there, or if you're an overseas designer, you go to Italy.
Well, I mean,
do they feel you're some kind of traitor or something?
No, not really. I think in the beginning, to be very honest, in Italy, when we are talking about Italian design, everything is very Milano-centric. So it's one city almost that attracts all the designers. And I never really need to move to Milan because close to Venice, there was a lot of new company popping up, Foscarini, Magis, Moroso, etc. So I was very lucky to be in the right place in the right time. So every time that I was going to Milan, I feel almost a foreign. Also, if I'm Italian, but there was this, community in Milan very strong. So in the end, when I see that it was very difficult to, let's call it, penetrate that community and having access to different opportunity, I say, okay, foreign for foreign, I will move to work outside Italy because design is everywhere, it's not only there. And then I start to work with different company, especially in Scandinavia, for the reason that I told you, the relation with, that time was my girlfriend, now my wife, that I was traveling here. And then the big Italian brands like Cassina, Molteni, etc., probably notice, who is this young designer that are working abroad? And I think that was a moment that a lot of this huge brand from Italy put their eyes on me, and they asked me and give me the opportunity to collaborate with them. But I never really feel, maybe only when I moved to work in China, there was a moment that the Italians maybe feel that I was a kind of, unfaithful.
Tell us about Ginori then. How did you come into contact with the brand, and what can you tell us about the brand?
It's a quite interesting story, because I met the brand manager and product manager of Ginori, Annalisa Tani, many years ago, before she joined Ginori. And since then, we were in contact. Then I did, in Stockholm, together with my friend Ben Gorham, the founder of Byredo, we did a special project for a small tailor shop where I designed the bottle of a fragrance and Ben designed the scent. And Annalisa was remembering this event that we did. And so she had in mind to, expanded the collection of Ginori with home fragrance collection. So she contacted me and she told me that she was joining, in the meantime, she joined Ginori, and if I was interested to do a project like that. I say immediately yes, because for me, Ginori, as an Italian designer, and I also study in Italy design, Ginori is one of the pillars of the Italian design industry, especially if you consider the work that Gio Ponti did with Ginori, that was really this sort of transition between the classicism and the contemporary way to approach porcelain. So it was also a big opportunity for me to try really to challenge myself and jumping into a completely different scenario.
And tell me about the company. Where is it based? What is its history? Is 1735, is that the year it was founded?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the oldest company in Italy, especially probably one of the oldest in Europe for the porcelain manufacture. And the company is based in Sesto Fiorentino, close to Florence in Tuscany. And that, by the way, is one of my favorite regions in Italy, especially for wine. And the company always have a tradition to work with incredible designers. And of course, I don't know design, but I mean, the first designer was also the founder of the company. But later they collaborate with so many, from Castiglioni to Gio Ponti to there was Paola Navone, until the contemporary like Luke Edward Hall and Constance Guisset and myself. And also you should remember that they had also this beautiful collaboration with Virgile Abloh. So they have really a fantastic trajectory, and I don't remember exactly now the years, but now Ginori is part of the Kering group, so there is also this contamination, strong relationship with the fashion industry that give to, in my opinion, to the brand a completely different level. So it's not anymore just a manufacturer, but is moving literally in a more lifestyle way, and in communicating, but also in doing the products.
Okay, I think it's time for you to show us the collaboration. Do you want to share your screen with us?
Yeah, I will try. Can you see that?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's full screen now, yeah.
So what I did for Ginori, there is the beginning of the presentation, I just showing few slides that is really represent also my approach, and that is very strong, the connection later also with what we did for Ginori. When we are saying we are looking for the beauty in function, is really what we are trying to do every time that we are doing a new project. And probably because, as I mentioned before, I'm originally from Venice. So for me, in the beginning, going to a factory and see a drawing that was becoming an object was something pretty natural. My grandfather was a glass blower. My mother was a decorator of glass. So born in this little island that everything was really connected to the craftsmanship. So for me, the craftsmanship is always something that attracts me, and I really like to work with that. And this is also another project that I did with Rubelli, that is a textile company, a fabric company that is also very connected to the city of Venice, but very strong also in terms of manufacturing, and completely a different typology. Glass, as I mentioned, is part of my blood in a way. And this is a little lamp, a rechargeable lamp that we did for Lodes, called Easy Peasy, that work like you turn the head of this lamp like a salt and pepper to dimmering the lamp. And the glass in this case was was a really important part of the project. And then there is also this collaboration with one of the most important brands talking about craftsmanship, like Hermes, where we did, this is the last Windows display where we work with the artisan that paint completely the scenography that we did. It's painted by hand, and this person was working normally for La Scala to do the scenography. And so every time that there is such a strong craft behind a project, for me is always vital, and it's something that really, really pushed me to explore different scenario and different typology where I can apply these characteristics. And then finally, we jump into the Ginori world that, believe me, if you've never been there, I highly recommend it that you go in to visit the factory, because it's like Willy Wonka in the chocolate fabric, but it's porcelain in this case. And there is this incredible archive and a lot of different molds and sculpture. And one of the things, when I went there the first time and I had the opportunity to see the factory and see what Ginori was doing also in the past and discovering the legacy, when I was working on this concept of home fragrances, the first thing for me that was very important was to find a very strong storytelling, a relationship between porcelain and fragrances and scent. And so I started looking around, doing a research, and I find out this history of Catherine de Medici, that she take the entire court and she moved from Tuscany, from Florence to France, to later become the Queen of France. And with her, from Florence, she bring with her a group of people, including a nose that she was using for her personal fragrance. And this nose, when moved to France, become one of the most famous person in the for the noble of the court of the French kingdom. So I found this true story very inspiring. And plus I combined this story and I imagined this collection of pieces where every piece is a sort of character. So then I call this collection La Compagnia di Caterina, so the Caterina company. So where every typology of home fragrances is a little character. And I start to sketch around, and I love the idea to contaminate the classical sculptural approach that the company that Ginori had and was very recognized in the past. And I don't want to show the entire face. I just want to show a partial part of the face, because I want to use some famous character like Julius Caesar or people that the David that everyone know, and just showing a little part that make this familiar to people, but they don't recognize because it's completely a new thing. So this was really my first sketches that I showed to the brand of the first two candles. And then here you see the entire collection, where there is, of course, incense holder, there is the candle with the refill, the huge candle. So there is a lot of different typology, and each of them have a very specific character that together is able also, to create a sort of collection that is also a film, almost a movie. Because I like the idea that this collection will continue his travel, and maybe in a couple of years there will be another character that jump into the collection with a different function, still in the home fragrances. And then for the design process of that, I look a lot all the different culture where the sculpture, the face was masked somehow. So I was looking the lucha libre in Mexico. I was also thinking differently in how to create a sort of aesthetics that can be contemporary, telling a old story, a little bit like the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio when he's in Romeo and Juliet. And then we work very closely with the brand to try to define not only the piece, the design of the piece, but also experiment with colors and a very peculiar way to treat the porcelain with a sort of special glaze. And so we did a lot of different sample on that to really mark properly the face of the character. And then another very important thing was that the storytelling that was behind all the collection need also to close the entire package, including also the fragrances. So when I was studying the history of Caterina de Medici, I discovered that a part of Florence in Italy at that time, there was another city famous for the scent, and I was quite lucky because I discovered that city was Venice. So Florence was more like using ingredient coming from the region, from the hill, like orange flower and mostly like flower ingredient. Venice, because have the tradition, the relation of trading with the East, let's say Turkey and Middle East, and also China, they have a lot of, in their scent, there was a lot of amber, musk, etc. So I tried to pick this ingredient that was related to the time, and using that to brief later also the nose that develop later all the fragrances. So there was 3 fragrances. One is orange, the orange Renaissance, and then there is the dark Blackstone, and then the third one is Purple Hill. So all these names also is coming from this, as I say, movie in a way that I written before to start even to design the pieces. But when I saw in Milan, when we present the collection, for me it was beautiful to see also the incredible work that the brand did in terms of photography and launch the event. So there was a real, let's say, 360 degrees support about my creativity. So I didn't feel only to be a designer of this collection, but I was mostly like art directing the collection. And the trustness that the brand gave to me was incredible. I can say that it's not easy to find a brand that truly give you the opportunity to embrace completely your vision, and they did. And for that, I'm very grateful. And this is some details, for example, of the Purple Hill. So each character is matching also with the characteristic of the scent. And in the incense, you can see there is this little flower, and that is a iris, and that's, in a way, I want to treat as a little bit like a graffiti, So also to maintain this kind of contradiction between the contemporary and the classic way to represent flowers. And in the end, that's still very important, another incredible work that was done, and also using a little bit what was my first input, the brand commissioned an external agency that did a fantastic work with the packaging to really emphasize this entire collection. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you unshare your screen. You mentioned the characters, and you mentioned Julius Caesar earlier on, but who are the characters? They're invented characters, or they're based on...
Is invented.
And do they play a role in this movie that you spoke about, this kind of concept? Do they have personalities?
Yes, they have. I mean, the character is... I don't want to reveal Caterina, the protagonist. There is no Caterina in the characters that I design for now. And the characters was mostly like finding, you know, like the letterato, for example, was trying to imagine who can be part of this fantastic company and find, or the Amazzone, for example, and trying to understand the aesthetic of the piece that can match the personality of this character, and giving a personality to that, what they were doing in this company, what was the main reason to be part of this fantastic company. So that part was also, of course, it's not that I've written the perfect, you know, like script for all of them. It was a work that was done also together with the company. But together with Ginori, there was, of course, the first input that I gave, and then there was this back and forth also to define the personality, to try really to make what for me is very important in design, that is not only that the object need to solve a problem or a need, but also to create a sort of empathy with the users of these objects. So to create this kind of connection. And in this case, I was really trying to push the boundaries to create this connection, because there was really the intention to give a personality to this object.
So it's almost like you've done a branding project with them as well as a design project. Is this how you regularly work? If a brand comes to you and says, we'd like you to design a chair, do you create a whole narrative around the chair, or do you just do a chair?
Depend of the brand. There is I kind of like this aspect to you know, to give a narrative around the object, because I think there is so many objects around us, and a narrative now to have a more holistic approach in when we design something, or I design something, give much more, I think is more complete, the vision of the project. And let's say that recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, when a company approached me, they most of the time also ask me this kind of approach in my work. And
so they want a story as well as a product.
Yeah, or a story, but not only a story, but also something that they together we can, you know, tailoring in a way to make more interesting what we are doing, and giving also more angle that is not just the pure object, but also considering, for example, the storytelling, the how to promote the project, who is the target of people that are going to buy that. So it's becoming, I think it's becoming more complex than in the past. And I find this kind of angle in design pretty interesting for myself.
What about the scent? Did you help decide what the scents would be, or were you working with a nose or with a perfumer? How did the smells come about?
With the scent, it was a long journey. Of course, there was when I started to create this narrative about the storytelling, there was also a sort of ideas of what can be the scent. And as I mentioned before, the ingredient was picked from the ingredient that I found in the history of what Venice was producing as a scent, or what Florence was producing as a scent. And then when we saw that, we decided to create a name that somehow was bringing this ingredient under the name of the scent. And then Ginori decided to partner with a company that developed the scent themselves, and they submit to us. So I remember my studio was like, looks like, the first floor of a shopping mall with all the fragrances around to smell the different, and was beautiful. And in the same time was very interesting to work with another sense and trying to understand if that smell was matching my idea also with the entire character that I create.
I mean, obviously in people's homes, they care a lot about what things look like. They care a lot about how things feel, and people pay a lot of attention to their music systems and things like that. Smell is usually the one that gets forgotten most of all. How involved do you get with smell in your day-to-day life? Do you often have to think about what your designs smell like? And how do you think the use of scent in interiors is changing?
Well, I was always attracted, honestly, since I was a kid. I always have these strong memories related to a smell. And I think smell is something, it's like, as you mentioned, like music, you connect a sound of memories, or the first kiss that you give to a girl, you remember the song of the summer, etc., etc. The smell for me was the same. I remember that my grandmother was putting like a soap on the drawer, and that soap was produced by a small producer close to Venice, and have this really fresh smell. And when you open the drawers, and there was the napkin inside there. So and then later also, when I become, for example, when I become friend with Ben Gorham of Byredo, was because I discovered in the Shep Solman Hotel, when our friend Clayson Coivistoruna designed the hotel, I went there I think it was 2008, something like that. And I discovered this little soap, shower gel, etc., from a brand that I never hear about. Then I Googled it, and I discovered that this brand have a small store, and I went there with this shower gel, and I asked, can I have the same one, because I love it. And then just a couple of days later, I discovered that my wife was doing, because she was also doing a dress, a jacket for Ben. So, and she introduced me to him, and I mentioned to him the history. And Blanche was the fragrance that is one of the most sold, by the way, by them. Still now, when I use that fragrance, or when I smell that fragrance, I remember the first day that I stayed in Shep Solman. So for me, smell is always important in the experience, in the memories. And I think it's something that in the interior design is becoming stronger and stronger, because it can really give the complete feeling of an environment. So you can really touch one part of the memories of people that normally is not touched visually, and giving even more complete experience of what you want to create.
Of course, with a candle, you have to think about what happens when the candle's finished. So what do people do with the vase or the candle holder when the candle is no longer there?
I really like this question, because one of the things that we put a lot of attention in the collection LCDC, considering that Ginori also is very well known for the porcelain, and the porcelain have such a craftsmanship, we decide that for a sort of part of the collection, there is a refill, because we don't want that after the use of the candle, you will have this cup without any function. But there was this idea that if you buy an object that have such a value, you can, when you finish the use of the fragrance, rebuy only the refill, and maybe you want also to change the scent, so you can try also another one. And I think this kind of approach is not only to emphasize the skill of Ginori in the craftsmanship of the porcelain, but is also a very sustainable approach in a product that normally after few hours, otherwise will be thrown away. In this case, you really give a proper value to the object.
And final question, Luca. So now you've put your movie, your script, your narrative out there into the world. Is it goodbye then to that family of characters, or will you continue to work with Ginori on developing the range?
Well, I hope there will be a lot of sequel about this movie. No, I think we are working in adding something. Let's see when there will be the sequel, but of course it's not a goodbye, but it's just keep going.
Fantastic. It's been great to see you again. Good luck with the project, and I hope to see you for real in Stockholm in February when the design week takes place.
For sure, Marcus.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luca.